sure that you guys have the best, not just for the near term, not just for the immediate, but in the long term, to build out your career. I just had a call this morning with somebody who is interviewing for a new job, but her career, she is completely different than what she wants to do in the next 5 years. So we're positioning her next job so that in 5 years she's at the place where she wants to be. So that's a lot about me. I apologize. That was probably a little too much, but let's go around, and I'd love to meet everybody else.
Yeah, sure. I'll go second. My name is Omar. I'm a fourth-year student. I'm majoring in supply chain management. I'm the vice president of the IECA Egyptian student chapter. And I really am interested in the workforce. And I do believe that the transition from college life to the workforce is a paradigm-shifting experience. And we as students need to understand the attributes that we need to attain in order to be more employable. And we need also to understand how dynamic it is, because what firms need in this very moment might change next hour or in the next 30 seconds. So we need to be adaptable, more understanding. So me as a student, I'm really interested in that, to get more knowledge about this. This is very important, and I believe that attaining skills and having credentials is sometimes even more important than the academic knowledge that you have. It's like if you have two individuals, one is doing amazing academically, and some other person is, has like better communication skills, like works best in a team. I think academic knowledge or knowledge in general is something that you can learn as years go on, but skills is like the main frame. That's my belief.
Omar, I could not agree with you more, and we'll be talking about those skills in the next hour or so. So that's great.
Terrific.
Who wants to go next?
Hello, Prof. How are you? I am Omar Hagas. I'm a second-year student. I am the General Secretary of the IECA, and I will call you.
Okay.
Sorry, I have a problem with the mic.
I think we lost him. Can you guys hear?
Yeah, I can.
Okay. If it's easier, also, guys, you can type it into the chat. I can read off. Maybe put your name, major, business experience, professional goals, and what you want to get from the next 45 minutes. Okay, so you guys, if that's easier, everybody can type it in into the chat there. Does anybody else want to share? They're more than welcome.
Maybe we can all start typing down the name and the major.
Yeah.
But if that's gonna take up some time, I think we can also directly start.
That's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
And what I want to really encourage everybody here is, and I'll be looking at the chat the whole time.
Yes.
I love interaction and questions, and the more you guys engage with me, the more questions you have, whether you speak them or you type them into the chat. Either one is okay. Just let me know, and we can And then we can really customize this, because I could talk for hours, but I want to talk about what you care about.
Perfect.
I have a presentation for you guys, and I'm actually going to send you the link for it. One sec. If this all works out. Just getting the link, one moment.
That's okay. Take your time. I think I made you a presenter, so it's going to be easy for you to share your slides.
Perfect. Interesting. It's not. Interesting. So for some reason, it's not letting me share my file, but I will present it so you guys can see it, and then we'll figure out how I can get you the link to the actual presentation. Okay. You guys can see the presentation right now. Is that right? Google Doc.
Right.
Put it on. Let's see if I can put it on full screen. Let's see what happens. Did I do it? Nice. Okay. So the idea, guys, is to talk about your careers, professional opportunities, and so I wanted to give a little bit about, you guys have familiarity with supply chain and logistics. So a little bit about the past, the present, and the future. So you guys know this, right? Obviously, it's, supply chain. It's a network to produce and distribute products and services, and it can be in healthcare, and it can be in manufacturing, and it can be in automotive. It can be in so many different things. So, oh no, it's a little awkward. Hold on one sec. Okay, whatever. All right. So I'd love to hear from you guys. I don't know why it doesn't show up perfectly, but it also looks like there's a delay. Why, if you guys just want to type in, I haven't seen anybody type their background in the chat yet, but if you want to type in, why supply chain is important to you. And again, guys, the more that you tell me about what you're looking for personally, the more that I can customize this. Otherwise, I'm just going to talk about general supply chain stuff that you can read online or, get from a book, and that's boring. So does anybody want to have any questions or thoughts, or why or share anything about why is supply chain important to them specifically? And you can type it into the chat if you want.
You're ready for your answers, guys. Why is supply chain important?
Or what it is about supply chain that you're most interested in.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, if the mic was erroring. Supply chain is important because it link every stage in the chain, and the raw material and the finished good can connect with easily way.
Right. So how it's connected. That's right. That's a great point. We'll talk about that.
Maybe by a system like ERP system.
Right. Great. Okay. So systems and processes. Okay. Anybody else? Okay, we'll move on to the next slide then. This might be a very short presentation, guys. Okay, so I want to share a trick that I do, and a lot of this is very. Some of the stuff I'm going to share with you is very obvious, but also extremely important, and will help differentiate you from your classmates, from others who are interviewing and networking for jobs. So I just did this morning, and you guys, so you can see, like, this is up to date. You guys, I recommend going to google.com/news, and then you can see I'm writing this in the chat here, and then you type in whatever phrases, right? So I typed in Egypt and supply chain, and I got this announcement about Grub Market is opening an office in Egypt. I also just typed in supply chain, and I'm hearing, Tim Cook is meeting with China. Obviously, both huge players in supply chain, manufacturing, operations, the global workforce, global labor force. And we're all often hearing about minerals, rare earth materials. Japan is signing a mineral supply chain agreement. So, I, as a student, if you guys are, trying to find and understand how supply chain applies to your career, or find opportunities, or learn about opportunities and different industries in supply chain, just going to google.com/news, you're going to read about, what's happening in real time. So that's a basic thing, but a huge differentiator. And when I teach supply chain, that's my first slide for every class. I say, guys, let's talk about supply chain in the news. And in fact, I remember very clearly who my guest speaker was, and how our entire conversation shifted when the war with Ukraine broke out last year, because that absolutely immediately affected supply chain, and it has affected supply chain for the last year plus now. Okay, so the next slide. So I have a lot of links and resources. And I'm just putting it on my personal website, aaronwolf.com. So when you go there, I have a 2-page Google Doc that I created that has a bunch of information, and we can go through it a little bit later. That doc has information about different websites, links, articles, influencers, all these different things in supply chain. Other than checking the news, I would absolutely go through that doc. So if you go to aaronwolf.com and you scroll all the way down to the bottom, it's a 2-page document. I make sure it's a Google Doc so I can update it. And I obviously also want it as a free resource. I want everybody to be able to have access to this information. And if you have any new insights or new things that you think are important, please share them. Okay, so supply chain in the past, it was simple, right? You'd order something, you'd go to a store, you'd buy it, take it home, and that was it. But supply chain is very, very complex, just as Omar had mentioned. So it starts with raw materials, and then we get to the supplier, and then we have some type of manufacturing. And there could be small suppliers, there could be large suppliers. Manufacturing can happen in one location or in multiple locations. And there's distribution, retailer, and then eventually to the consumer. That is the basic supply chain. But it's obviously much more complex because you might have suppliers and manufacturers communicating with one another. A manufacturer sending something to a supplier, then it goes back to another manufacturer. You have then distribution centers, distribution organizations that are going to be coordinating. You may have a few raw materials, but then and then additional suppliers. Manufacturing can happen at multiple locations with small, medium, large, etc. Distribution, same concept. Retailers are going to be all over, and your consumers can be, a few small consumers to, everybody in the world. So it can really vary. So supply chain is not just a simple process. It's very complex. And the other very interesting thing about all of this is that the information actually flows in the opposite direction of the supply chain. So when you look at this, your raw materials are the first part of the process, and the consumers are the last part. But consumers send their feedback to the retailers. Retailers give their feedback to distribution, back to manufacturing, suppliers, raw materials. So if there's a problem with the raw materials, maybe the manufacturing tells the raw material manufacturer or supplier, but maybe it comes through when it gets to the retailer or the consumer. So information flows backwards. So clear communication, clear strategies and processes is going to be necessary. And we'll talk a little bit about quality control as well. So, then what we have here are multiple different key terms, phrases that are all part of supply chain. So, I think that this should cover the majority of it. But when you think about supply chain, some key terms, can include shipping, warehousing, safety, quality, data, marketing, right? All of these different things. And obviously, when you're looking at global supply chain, there can be exchange rates and taxes and transportation, various regulations. So supply chain is not so simple. And we could easily talk for an hour about each of these individual things. So what I wanted to share here is what I've done in the past when I've given this type of presentation to students is we talk about supply chain in the U.S. and globally, and I encourage you guys. I'm sure that the Egyptian government has information about supply chain. What you can see here in this, and you'll get the links for all of this, is you can look at the U.S. government put out an executive order on the supply chain. And, here's an article and a link about global relations, how the war in Ukraine has, affected the supply chain. NATO has a huge document about logistics, and it talks about supply chain. And then there's also the Belt and Road Initiative. Have you guys heard of or are familiar with the Belt and Road Initiative? I'll take that as a no. So here's a great resource for you guys. Click on that and read about the Belt and Road Initiative. Definitely an important initiative for anybody studying or working in the global supply chain. Here's a slide that talks about different labor resources, okay, and how labor is going to be affected and influenced by supply chain. So sustainability is going to be huge. Looking at minimum wage. There are certain, I'm working on it with a client right now, and certain companies are looking to outsource, whether they outsource to, local countries or, the Philippines or South America or East Asia, wherever that might be. Another key skill and an important factor in supply chain is data. If you guys have anything, sorry, I'm just reading Ibrahim's message. Okay. Data, being able to track, manage, and analyze. I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Excel. But
sure.
Yeah, good. Okay. So, if you guys might know Excel, but you definitely, I'm going to put it in here, like VLOOKUP, pivot tables, right? If you don't know what VLOOKUP and pivot tables are, you need to learn them now. Okay. Go on YouTube. It takes a half an hour, not even, super simple and easy. There's other data analytics software, Power BI, and other things that I recommend looking into. And I'll share a quick story. So for my classes at Georgetown, I have at least one guest speaker each class. And I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Rivian. It's an electric truck company. I brought in a recruiter from Rivian to speak to the class. He was a former employee at Amazon, or actually a former recruiter at Amazon. And I asked him, I said, what do you think are the most important key experiences that the students should have? And he told me, congratulations, you go to Georgetown. That's amazing. I'm not hiring you because you go to Georgetown. I'm hiring you because you have data analytics skills. And he said, if you have SQL on your resume, I will push you forward to the next round. SQL is also something that you can learn, take some basic courses, free courses online, and very important. And you don't have to be an expert in it, but you do have to understand it, understand how to manipulate data, how to work with data, how to analyze it. So these are some additional links about supply chain and data. This is also something here, some information about innovation. I mentioned to you that I'm very passionate and interested in innovation. I worked in innovation and transportation, in the manufacturing space. Are you guys familiar with Gartner? Gartner here. Gartner is a great resource for you guys about supply chain as well as innovation. They have different analyses and insights about multiple industries beyond supply chain, and it can be a great way to learn more about the companies or the industries that you're looking into. And then obviously here, here's your top supply chain companies, and Gartner has this. It comes out every year. And what I love about this is that, there's the obvious ones: Johnson & Johnson, PepsiCo, Microsoft. But then you have, maybe not so obvious. You have BMW is big on supply chain. L'Oreal, Siemens, General Mills. Consumer packaged goods, like, they're only successful because of supply chain. Some high level about, as you guys are exploring the industry. I made this post a while ago on LinkedIn because I've been playing a lot with ChatGPT. I'm assuming everybody's familiar with ChatGPT or other types of AI chat. Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep. You guys are all hopefully playing with ChatGPT or other AI technologies. If you're not, get off this thing right now and go learn it. I want to emphasize that ChatGPT is not perfect. It's not the best thing for everybody, but it is a great place to start. And so here I created some stuff about ChatGPT and how to leverage for supply chain. So the first thing is, you can, when you create your prompt in ChatGPT, you can say act as, right, like a project manager or a product manager or a researcher. And then you explain what your objective is, create a report, create a framework, an outline, a short story. Then you identify the industry, whether it's specifically in transportation or logistics or packaging. And then, give information about whatever variables or timeline or costs might be necessary, and be very clear. So you could say, just tell me about supply chain, and ChatGPT will give you, a basic overview of supply chain. But if you say, act as the CEO looking into creating a quarterly report on how cold storage supply chain will affect my consumer packaged goods industry, or product, right? Then you'll get a very different answer and a much more specific answer. And you guys should not be afraid to, or ideally you should be using ChatGPT and other tools to really understand and improve the efficiency. These are two other resources also on my website on aaronwolf.com that talk about networking, interviewing, negotiating for salaries, as well as for product management. I did a whole thing on product management. So I see a little bit of people typing, not so much here in the chat. So I'd like to open it up to specific questions. I'll address. I apologize, my pronunciation might not be so great for Mazin's, about how to minimize risk and what to keep in mind. So I think risk management covers a lot of things. I haven't been so deep in the Egyptian supply chain industry, but for example, risk is looking at what could happen and how bad it could be. And so, you can go as big picture as risk management for COVID. How did the world not have strategies and systems in place to address a global pandemic like COVID? And on that same aspect, companies need to do the same thing about their product, about their industries, about their finances, etc. So you can have risk management plans, risk management documents, risk management meetings to address, different risks and what would happen if there were risks based, if something happened based off of your product, the environment that the product is in, your competitors, your own manufacturing facility or your own operations. In terms of Ibrahim's question about your skills on the CV. So I have a very specific resume, curriculum vitae CV that I put on my Google Doc, on the 30-page Google Doc called Networking for Life. It is a very standard resume for the US. I know specifically that like Indian resumes look very different. Not as familiar with Egyptian resumes. For example, like in the, sometimes in India, people will put like if they're married and what their age is. That would never be put on a U.S. resume. I'm not certain for Egypt.
Neither do us.
Sorry?
Neither do us. We don't put that. Yeah,
you guys also don't, right? So, I think, it depends on what type of jobs you guys are applying to. If it is in the U.S. or if it's in Europe, or if it's locally. I think there are some critical aspects of what networking looks like, and job applications. Many people currently in college and graduating just apply. They click on a few things, they submit their resume, they say I applied, and then that's it. And the majority of the time when people apply online, they don't get a call back, they don't get an interview, they don't get the job. And so there's a critical aspect of successful interviewing and to land your job, and that happens through networking. So you guys should 100% be networking. Everybody's here on this call. Look at my Google Doc, send me a question, reach out to me, connect with me on LinkedIn. Right? I have almost 10,000 connections on my LinkedIn. The majority of those are in supply chain. The majority of those are with companies that are hiring and looking to bring in qualified candidates. And I'm just one guy, right? There are other people with 100,000 connections on LinkedIn in the supply chain space. And there are people who only have a few hundred connections, but they're looking to hire. And the only way you will find out about that is by networking with those people. And I talk about it in my Google Doc, where you can send a basic message to individuals, let them know that you're interested to connect with them, set up a time to talk, even if it's 15 minutes just to connect with them and build that rapport. And maybe they can hire you. That would be amazing. Maybe they can't, but if they can't hire you, ideally they walk away from that meeting and say, wow, My meeting with Ibrahim, my meeting with Aaron, my meeting with, Yasmin or whomever was so fascinating. I want to do all I can to help that person get a job. Maybe it's a job in my company. Maybe it's a job with my old college roommate or my next door neighbor or whomever. Networking is critical. And I see a lot of people who are young and still in college not network. And then they complain to me, oh, I didn't get a job. Well, you didn't get a job because you didn't network. And I can't say it's a fact 100% of the time, but I will tell you that the people who do land jobs, maybe they did know the owner, like maybe their friend was the owner of the company or their neighbor was the owner or whatever it is, but they still had to network. They still had to be able to build rapport and connect with those people at those companies. Any questions or thoughts on that?
Let's go, guys. You want to hear your questions?
Oh, great question. What are the most important soft skills? Yeah. So, emotional intelligence. Are you guys familiar with emotional intelligence? I think that's a critical soft skill. I think somebody's ability to listen, to understand the information that's being provided to them, and then act upon that. When I was working in consulting at Deloitte, I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with Deloitte Management Consulting, I thought initially that it's just about results. My boss comes to me, gives me a problem, solve it. That's not how the life works. That's not how business works, guys. It is about the rapport that you build with your clients and with your teammates. You want them coming to you, asking you questions and interacting with you and engaging with you. Because if they don't come to you, they're going to go to somebody else and you're going to lose your job. You're going to lose the project. So you have to build rapport. You have to be good at listening with other people. You have to be good at demonstrating, actively listening, sharing back what they're saying to you, not having judgment. Maybe somebody comes to you and has a very basic or silly supply chain question, then come back to them with specific information and don't judge them. You want them to feel comfortable to come with you with whatever. I'll go back to the concept that I mentioned before about networking, which is when you speak to individuals, you don't know who they know or how they got there. So you absolutely want to be very respectful to them. One of my former companies, I was speaking with a girl. We both started around the same time. And I just said, hey, how'd you find out about the company? And the girl goes, oh, my dad's the chairman of the board. Okay, good to know, right? So your goal here is to build rapport, build a connection with individuals, make sure that they feel comfortable coming to you with their challenges and problems and their uncertainties. The other thing that I'll also share, and again, I'm not, I know from a Western culture, this is very important. A lot of people graduating, both from undergrad and graduate school, they're very knowledgeable. They've learned a lot. They've studied. They've done their reports. They've done their analyses. But it's very different when you have 1 year of experience or 10 or 20 years of experience. And unless you are the CEO, right, at 22, 23 years old, you have to know and be very humble with others. You need to listen to them. Doesn't mean you have to do what they say, but you need to listen to why they have those processes and practices in place. And a lot of young people early on in their professional careers just say, oh, I know what it is, just do this. Or, oh, I'm not going to go to this meeting because nobody cares about, nobody talks about the things that are important to me. You have to put the time in and be humble about your experience and knowledge. Because even if you're doing one assignment and very knowledgeable about that assignment, you might get a new assignment from somebody else. And you want that person to be on your side and to be generous and kind with you, even if they didn't know how to do the other assignment or they didn't understand, the other work that you were doing. What other questions, guys?
I think that's very true. And I'll just share a very quick story. I was a CEO during my first semester, and most of my colleagues were people that are about to graduate. So I was their CEO. I had the idea, but what I understood is that I need to make sure that all of us understand one another, and I would get their experience and their expertise, because all of us are like a team. We all work in unison. And although I was the youngest and I don't have the knowledge that they do, I need to sit down with them and listen. So emotional intelligence and being able to communicate wisely with people and building rapport, this is definitely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's often something that is not taught or shared in undergraduate or graduate classes, unless you're like a psychology major, right? Or a philosophy major or something like that. Which is why I love talking to people who studied, ancient history or world religions or philosophy or whatever, because they look at things from a more unique perspective, and it is critical. If you guys, don't just walk into a company and say, well, I'm only doing supply chain, so I'm not going to talk to the product manager, or I'm not going to talk to the accounting person, or that marketing person isn't important to me. Everybody's important to you, because you can learn a lot from the marketing person about what was successful and what wasn't successful for marketing campaigns, and vice versa for everything else. So, don't be judgmental, be open, and listen to people's experience and insights.
That's right.
Any other questions, guys? Yes, the skills needed for supply chain management vary depending on the industry. So what about healthcare supply chain? Yeah, look, skills absolutely matter. I'm working on a project with a pharmaceuticals company, and the skills for pharmaceuticals company are going to differ if I go work with a company that manufactures clothing or apparel in China, right? Different skills, different expertise, but the applications often overlap. So if you're looking to get into the healthcare industry and supply chain, I don't have, I have a little bit, but I'm not an expert in supply chain and healthcare. The first thing I would do is say, go on LinkedIn, follow people who have 10,000, 20, 30,000 plus connections on LinkedIn, or go on Twitter. Follow the CEOs of the companies that are in the healthcare supply chain space, and read what they write. Read the articles that they put out. Read the white papers and their posts. Understand the trends of the market, and then reach out to them and ask them for a 15-minute phone call, or to grab a cup of coffee. And when you do that enough times, I'm not saying do it like 5 times. I'm saying do it like 50 times, at least 50 times, 100 times. You're going to get very good at communicating and talking to people and learning about them. You're also going to get very, very good about building out the value that you bring to an organization, so that they'll hire you, or they'll want to interview you, or they'll want to offer you a position. Okay, another Ibrahim asks, I'll be a trainee as representative. What is your advice to me for that? By the way, I'm not a doctor. I didn't get my PhD, but thank you, Ibrahim, for thinking I am one. You're here for the contract, correct offer to the client as a marketing. Okay. So this is a good question. I don't understand really, the full aspect of it, of the company and the goods or services that it provides. The short answer is that you want to learn about the question from whoever's asking you to do the work, and then reach out to everybody else who's going to be involved, and understand the moving parts and the processes that currently exist for that product, and then what can be streamlined, what can be optimized. I'm not going to say that every single process in a warehouse has been well thought out, but ideally it has been thought out. And if it hasn't been, then you need to put together a very clear proposal of how things can be improved. But even in that aspect, guys, I would be very careful to you be the one to say, this is how it needs to be done better, because you guys just started the company. So find an internal advocate, find other people at the company who would be open and willing to talk to you and guide you into improving those efficiencies. I'm not sure, Ibrahim, if that helped you. Okay, any other questions? Okay, so guys, listen, what I'll tell you is the following. I love this stuff. I love helping students. I love having these types of conversations. You guys have the link to my website, aaronwolf.com. It's in the chat. Reach out to me, throw some time on my calendar. If you want to jump on a call for 15 minutes or something, I'm happy to jump on a call and talk about specific processes or customized approaches for you guys to land your next job. But obviously before you do that, look at each of the 3 documents on the website: the Networking for Life document, the project management document, and the supply chain resources. AaronWolf.com is the place to go. And there is also where you can set up meetings with me and download everything. So, anything else, guys?
So I think you don't have any questions left, but I'll have to say that to my colleagues that you're still in the beginning of your undergrad journey, and do know that skills and knowledge come in small increments, but you need to put some effort. You need to concentrate. You need to look for it. You try to seek opportunities, join such events that we're hosting, and that's definitely the way to go. And we're so glad that we had you today, Prof. It was amazing. It's such a pleasure to have you, and it was such a pleasure to emphasize on such an important topic, which is credentials and skills, and how important that is to undergrad students, and you wonderfully gave us a lot of resources that we can look into, and I advise my colleagues to do so. That'd be very important.
Great. Yeah, I mean, I'll add one thing, guys. Thank you, Omar. I'll add one more thing, guys, which is, when you have guest speakers like me, or people with subject matter expertise or experience, go to them and ask them questions. Really engage with them. We go out of our way to have these types of conversations because we care and we want to help. And it's much better you ask a silly question or a weird question to somebody like me than to walking into your new job and have no idea what's going on. Right? So, reach out to people. LinkedIn is a very powerful tool, and I'm always a fan of helping people. And I know that there are hundreds of millions of people on LinkedIn in the same way. So, you have my website, guys. Please reach out if there's anything I can do to help or support in the future.
Sure. Thank you for accepting our invitation, and thank you everyone for being with us today.
Okay.
Thank you. Guys. Goodbye.
Okay. Ramadan Mubarak, and have
a beautiful day.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.